Hello, and welcome to your BLT Bite. I am your host, Evan Starnes, and today we're going to be playing around with microphones. And I'm going to show you a few different microphones and what they sound like, as well as why it's important to configure your microphones correctly in Windows settings. Now, before we get into this, I do want to say I'm not going to get really into the nitty-gritty here as far as microphones and the right kind of mic. Really just going to talk more about like configurations, like an external mic that sits on a desk versus a headset mic versus the mics built into your laptop. As you know, most individuals that are, beginning with podcasting or live streaming are probably going to be starting out with stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get right to it. And also, I would like to emphasize here, I'm not, at least for this segment of the recording, doing any or maybe a whole lot of post-production on this audio, just because I want you to hear the raw sound from these microphones. Now, the first type of mic that I'm using is an external mic. This microphone plugs into your computer via USB and sits on your desk, and you talk into it, of course. And I will admit, this microphone is kind of a bit more on the expensive-ish side for beginners. It's a blue Yeti, and these have been out for years. And this mic's got quite a few different settings on it. You can, record in stereo if you want to, but it's a good mic, and if you want to really get into even more nitty-gritty, if you want to like record events and interviews and things, I think this mic might do the trick. That being said, it's not it's a pretty big mic. It's it's tall and heavy, but it's solid, and it does sound quite good. But if you want to actually get a good solid USB mic for under $50, I would get the blue Snowball. It basically sounds the way this mic does right now, and it only has one option for just the way it can record. It can't do stereo or anything, but it's a nice, what I like to call a plug and chug mic. So it's you plug it into your computer, you make sure, and this is key here, that the software you're using is set to use that microphone, and then you just do your thing. You podcast and interview or live stream or whatever, and it's going to sound quite good. And honestly, a lot of very successful YouTubers use that as their daily mic, and it does perfect. So that's the blue Yeti and blue Snowball. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the microphones built into this laptop that I'm recording with, as they sound like pretty typical laptop mics. And I'm just going to warn you, especially if you're an audio person, the audio quality is going to be downgraded here in a couple of seconds. Alrighty, so we're now using the microphones built into my Lenovo laptop. Don't really worry about brands here, because they're all so different. But I will admit, I did kind of cheat a little bit, at least for this segment of the recording, because upon listening to these microphones, I realized that, holy crap, these things are very, very trebly. So I did kind of just go in Audacity and just tone the treble down a little bit on this track so it doesn't sound so harsh. But these are the microphones in my Lenovo laptop, and I will say I have already configured them to sound better, as by default, the point I want to make about using laptop mics is that they typically actually come pre-configured with some features like noise reduction and echo cancellation, and those features are mainly in place because the vast majority of people that are using these microphones and the webcam on these computers are going to be using those for like Zoom calls and things like that. So they've effectively configured these mics to sound good enough for video calls. But, if you're trying to do podcasting, what this does is it really takes a lot of the nice like treble and a lot of just the quality out of your audio. And so what I'm going to show you next is actually how these microphones typically sound by default. if you've listened to like interviews before, on YouTube or on TV of, people and just like recordings of Zoom calls, you might recognize this, just the way these sound. And, if you're an audio guy, this is not going to sound very good. So apologies in advance. Alrighty, so now we're recording using a gaming headset, and this is a wireless gaming headset. And the one thing I'm going to say, if you want to make a podcast or a live stream, don't try not to use a gaming headset, as the microphone is directly in front of your face. But besides that, the headset itself also tends to kind of pick up a lot of the vibrations from your head, so it just kind of gives it a very like thin and sometimes nasally sound depending on the headset. Also, this being a wireless headset, they do tend to compress the audio significantly and kind of it just sounds very underwater and tinny. I'm trying to avoid getting super technological here, but this is probably one of the only wireless headsets that doesn't actually do that. And it sounds okay. So I will say this is kind of another example of if you're in a pinch and you've got nothing else on you, kind of like the laptop mics, it'll get you by, but it's not the best option. Alrighty, we're back on the good Yeti again, and let's go ahead and take a look real quick at how to configure your microphones in Windows settings and make them sound as good as possible. So I have my speech routed here, so what I'm going to show you is how to get to what's called the properties for any microphone that you have plugged in or built into your computer. Now, the easiest way to do this actually is by going to the Windows Run dialog.
Speech mode talk.
And I have my speech off, but it just would have said Run dialog. Then type the phrase mmsys.cpl.
Text desktop sound dialog. Playback property page. Select the playback device below to modify its settings. List.
And this will immediately get you into your sound settings. Now, as you can tell, we are on the playback tab. So this is all of your speakers and headphones that you've got configured. This isn't what we want though, so I'm going to hit Control Tab to switch to the
recording property page. Select the recording device below to modify its settings. List.
And now I've got all of these microphones here. So let's just look at these real quick.
Headset microphone. Corsair HS80 RGB wireless gaming receiver. Default device 105.
There's our gaming headset. And as you can tell, it did say it's the default device. So any application that uses your mics will be, well, in this case, we'll be using that headset.
Microphone array. Intel registered smart sound technology for digital microphones. Ready 205.
Those are actually the microphones built into this laptop.
Microphone. Realtek. R. Audio. Not plugged in 305.
That is the external microphone jack. It's actually part of the headphone jack on this laptop, and honestly, a lot of computers.
Stereo mix. Realtek. R. Audio. Disabled 405.
I disabled that, but that's basically a way to allow you to record not only the audio from your computer itself, but a bunch of external mics. It's kind of complicated to get set up, so I typically don't recommend using it.
Microphone. Yeti stereo microphone. Ready 505.
And then, of course, the Yeti. So let's go ahead and look at the
step microphone array. Intel registered smart sound
laptop mics here. Now, to get into the properties for this microphone, you want to press Alt-P.
Microphone array properties dialog. Property page front panel digital jack. Edit selected microphone array.
And I don't know why it calls it a front panel digital jack, but here's what we've got. So now we're in the general properties, so you can change the name of the microphone if you wanted to.
Change icon button Alt plus I.
Change its icon.
Controller information grouping Intel registered smart Intel R corporation button. Device usage. Combo box use this device. Enable. Collapsed.
You can enable and disable microphones here.
OK button. Cancel button.
Now we've got several tabs once I hit tab.
Tab control. General tab selected.
And here are these tabs.
Listen tab selected. Listen tab selected.
The Listen tab is actually kind of what I'm using to record my computer's audio here. And basically what it allows you to do is listen to the microphone through speakers or headphones. Now, keep in mind that there is a bit of a delay between when you speak and then when you hear the audio. So it's a good way to check that your microphone's set up properly, but I wouldn't keep it on otherwise.
Levels tab selected. Levels tab selected.
The all-important levels. Now, typically, I would leave these alone, especially if you're using a blue Snowball, as they're already set up correctly.
Dialog 100. Microphone array grouping. Microphone array slider 100.
But this is where you can adjust your microphone volume. So if you find that it's a little bit too quiet and your microphone doesn't have a built-in knob for adjusting the gain, this is where I would recommend adjusting it.
Mute checkbox not checked. Alt+M.
Of course, you can mute it.
OK button. Cancel tab control. Levels tab selected.
And here's one last very important tab.
Advanced tab selected.
This is the advanced. So I'll just go ahead and quickly tab through the items here, and I'm not going to really explain most of them except for one.
Exclusive mode grouping. Allow applications that give exclusive mode applications priority checkbox. Signal enhancements grouping allows extra signal processing by the audio device. Enable audio enhancements checkbox not checked.
Aha. So enable audio enhancements. Now, this is how you would disable any of the noise reduction or echo cancellation and just get the raw, high quality audio out of your microphone. So I would always recommend, if you get a mic and it has this turned on, turn that off. So that's really pretty much it as far as how to configure microphones. And I will say that if you ever do end up messing something up,
Restore defaults button Alt+D.
you have that button and that will restore your microphone to the defaults that it was configured at from the factory. So don't be afraid to play around with things and mess around and try and tune your sound to the best possible quality, I guess, for you. Anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this BLT Bite. So thank you so much for listening. Be sure to tune in Wednesday for the live streaming tips and tricks episode that will be coming out. And yeah, I am your host, Evan Starnes, and I'll see you next time.